Souls Hill, Chapter 1, The Burden. Lucinda Holden didn't always hate the park. As a child, it was her favorite place to spend the weekend on. But no amount of family picnics and games of pretend can bring back the joy she felt before that terrible day drove it all away. And those 14 years since have done nothing to nullify the pain. If it wasn't important to Timothy's safety, Lucinda would gladly steer clear of the park. But it didn't matter what she wanted. So here she is, sitting on the edge of the circular water fountain facing the gates, the only known escape from this municipal park. She looked up at the sky and her stomach plummeted when she saw the night creeping closer. Lucinda isn't the first, nor will she be the last to fear being outside at night. An outside eye would find this surprising given that she lives in a town that barely exceeds the area of a pin stuck on a map. If they got a good look at this place at night, they'd leave in the morning and never return. Sitting so still and making almost no sound, Lucinda could hear and feel the area already waking from its slumber. The autumn breeze passed by Lucinda's round face, enchanting her parted bangs to dance and sway to its soft melody of rustling tree branches and tumbling leaves. An owl hooted nearby, following the birds joining together in song. Crickets chirped and hopped around in the grass. There's one more sound cutting through the silence. A voice only Lucinda can hear. A voice she didn't want to hear. Lucinda tried to push back the voice, but she still heard it loud and clear. "Grandpa! Grandpa!" it cried. Lucinda clenched the edge of the water fountain, bowing her head and squeezing her eyes shut. The rushing of the water fountain quickly morphed into the wail of a siren. The continued chirping of the birds and crickets became the frightened voices of Lucinda's parents as they rushed up to her. The wind's chilly embrace left Lucinda with the same goosebumps she got when her grandfather wouldn't wake up. She finally forced her eyes open. In doing so, all those sounds retreated back into the inky depths of her mind. She breathed a sigh of relief, though her grip on the water fountain was still as strong as iron. "Welcome back, Lucinda." Lucinda gasped, startled, but then she let out a sigh as she stood up. She turned her attention to the source of the voice, which unfortunately resided beside the oak tree. The oak tree that stood so tall it grazed the sky. The oak tree with a base so thick it would take a hurricane to uproot it. The oak tree whose branches stretched out so far it would have a good deal of shade to offer no matter what time of day it was. The oak tree Lucinda had no intention of going anywhere near. But then again, her brother won't be here for a few more minutes, and Mallory's specialty is keeping her promises. As much as she hated it, Lucinda clenched her teeth and slowly walked towards the oak tree, bracing herself for what was going to happen next. Once she was close, she felt her right hand begin to sting, but she didn't need to look at it to know what was happening now. She could clearly picture the glowing lines appearing one by one as if being carved into her flesh, creating a simple drawing of a butterfly, one that Lucinda was determined to make sure doesn't spread its wings. Despite the number of times she's seen her, she felt chills run down her spine when she was face to face with Mallory. Mallory's looks alone would give a grown man nightmares, as they suggested that she died and was horribly revived. Her skin was dull gray, death's signature color. Black veins littered her skin. Her eyes were pale like a blind man's. The black cat she held in her bony arms was wrapped in the loose, raggedy clothes that she wore. It played with her long, frizzy hair that clearly hadn't seen a comb recently. "How have you been?" Mallory asked sarcastically in a slightly raspy voice. "Just so you know, I see no reason to keep meeting like this," Lucinda said. "Timothy knows how I feel about this place." "Too bad. Any changes to the tower?" "No, it's the same as it's always been. Same aura, same energy, same everything." "Good." Mallory shifted her eyes as she caressed her cat. Lucinda hesitated before speaking. "Why are you afraid of the tower?" Mallory snapped her gaze back to Lucinda. "I'm not afraid of anything," she claimed. "I thought you knew that by now." "Then why am I keeping an eye on it for you?" Mallory was silent. She looked away and knitted her brows together. Lucinda could tell that she was thinking. After a few moments, Mallory shifted her gaze back to Lucinda, but she still wouldn't answer her question. "Sorry I asked," Lucinda apologized before starting back for the water fountain. "That tower has been around for much longer than you have," Mallory suddenly informed. Lucinda stopped and looked back at her. "And believe me, it's not just a building shrouded in mystery and bizarre phenomena." "Then what is it?" Mallory was silent once more, just for a moment. "Something you can't begin to understand." Then she placed her cat on her shoulder and began walking into the cluster of trees behind her. Lucinda was about to say something when she heard the rumblings of a motorcycle engine. She looked to see her brother roll up to the park gates. "Hey, Cindy," Lucinda's brother called. "You coming?" Lucinda looked back once more before she turned and walked to the fountain. She retrieved her navy blue purse, then rounded the fountain and walked down the stone pathway to get to the park gates. "You said to pick you up at work, but I knew where you'd really be," Lucinda's brother said. Lucinda mustered a giggle. "You know me that well, don't you, Timothy?" she asked, grabbing the extra helmet. "You're my sister. There's nothing I don't know about you." If only that were true. Lucinda put on the helmet, then hopped onto the motorcycle and held on tight to Timothy's broad back as they revved off. The two of them rode down the streets, passing by apartment buildings with lit windows and shops reaching closing time. The streetlights were on, acting as a nightlight in the shadow-infested bedroom that was their hometown. Along the way, they circled around the tower in the middle of town. Lucinda took this chance to take another look at the aura surrounding the tower, still as strong and enigmatic as it's always been. As they continued on, the light up ahead turned red, prompting Timothy to come to a stop. While waiting for the light to change, Lucinda noticed movement in a dark alleyway across the road. She looked closer to see that shadow creature in the headlights of a passing car. It was just for a moment, but just seeing those empty eyes staring back at her and those long, slender teeth exposed made the hairs on her neck stand up. Her heart started thumping against her ribcage when it reached out a bony hand to her. Despite knowing she was nowhere near within its reach, she still felt as though its spindly fingertips were just a hair away from touching her face. As soon as the light turned green, Lucinda clung tighter to Timothy's back the instant they started moving again. "You okay back there?" Timothy asked. Lucinda didn't reply. Then Timothy noticed that she was trembling. "Cindy, what's wrong?" "I'm fine. Just cold," Lucinda lied. "Sit tight, Cindy. We're almost home." Lucinda sighed as she rested her head on Timothy's back. Her brother is safe, at least for another night, which is the best that she's ever going to get from Soul's Hill, a town where looks are often deceiving, and there's always something skulking in the darkness.